The Injen PowerFlow cold air intake is perfect for the 2015 and newer 3.5 EcoBoost F-150 owner who wants to make their truck more exciting to drive. Not only is this going to make your truck sound better, but you should get some more power as well, all in one easy, clever bolt-on package. There are a ton of cold air intakes on the market, but the PowerFlow is not your typical intake. The chief engineering directive here was to keep intake air temperatures down while increasing overall airflow. Now, starting with the filters, your single stock filter is replaced with these twin cone filters. Now, these are 7 inches tall and thus give you a lot more surface area than your factory unit, so they can flow much more air, which is the key to the whole system. Now, these are dry filters as well, and they feature Injen's super nano web technology. This is a unique multi-layer media with a nano membrane outside. The filters have nice deep pleats to help trap dirt and debris, and since these are a dry design, there's no oil to worry about here either. You can just clean these out and you're ready to roll again. You don't need to worry about re-oiling them. The filters are closed off with a unique heat shield that is designed to keep the hot ambient air in your engine bay away from those filters so they can pull in cooler air from outside of the engine bay. The heat shield walls them off and you get lots of thick weather stripping for all the edges as well as the ports for the intake tubes to keep as much heat as possible out without restricting airflow. Now, all that is going to feed into the PowerFlow's unique merge collector tube. Now, this thing kind of looks a little bit like a pretzel, but it is not soft and tasty. Instead of 2 diverging or completely separate tubes feeding the separate turbos, this setup is designed to merge the incoming air and equalize it before it reaches the turbos via the 3.5-inch diameter tubing. So the velocity, the pressure, and the temperature of that air are the same no matter which turbo or which bank is getting it. You're gonna find equal length runners here as well to help make that happen, and the fact that this is one solid piece that is pretty much wide open in the center is gonna give you quite a bit more turbo noise, and that's always my favorite part of installing a cold air intake. Now, more airflow also means that this should give you some more power and better response as well. Since there are less restrictions in the system and it is physically flowing more air, the engine can compensate, give you a bit more fuel and a bit more boost, so it should respond better too. Now, as always with a bolt-on breather modification, we're not talking about huge horsepower or torque gains here. Injen claims about 10 horsepower and 10 pound-feet of torque, but your results may vary depending on the condition of your truck and what other modifications you have. And while you do not need a tune in order to fit this and have it work on your truck, if you want to take full advantage of the potential benefits, a custom tune is always the way to go. Now, this one is finished in black, but unlike a lot of other cold air intakes on the market, you actually have options for the color of the tubing. You can get this same setup in bright race blue or cement gray tubing, and those are available on our site as well. Everything is going to be the same with those aside from the color of the tube itself, so you get all the same benefits just with a different pop of color under the hood. The heat shield here is made from steel that has been powder coated wrinkle black for good looks and additional protection against corrosion. That cool intake tube is made from CAD designed cross-linked polyethylene. So it's strong, it's lightweight, and it's designed to have better heat dissipation than traditional plastic or aluminum intake tubing. Again, all with the goal of keeping intake air temperatures down. The super nano web filter has that multi-layer dry cotton media with progressive filtering and the nano membrane over top for additional filtering capacity. This is definitely a high quality setup. Plus, it comes with all of the fixings that you need to get this set up in your engine bay, including all the weather stripping for the heat shield. Pricing comes in at about $650, placing this in the middle of the pack. You are paying a premium for the engineering that's baked in here, but if you want something that is equal parts cool to look at and effective, the PowerFlow is going to be your answer. You may just have to spend a little more than you initially expected to get it, but it is definitely worth the cost. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 1 hour to complete. Now, this is a pretty straightforward operation and everything is just going to bolt into place. You will, however, have to drill the new intake tube here for your intake air temp sensor on your truck. Some trucks have it in different places than others. However, you're only drilling that one hole and it's in the new tube, so there are no permanent modifications that need to be made to the truck itself, and once you're done with that, you're pretty much set to go. We're also going to walk you through the entire process step by step right now, so for that, let's head on out to the shop and get to it.
For this install, you would need a drill, an impact, a ratchet, a long extension, 5mm Allen socket, 7, 8, 10, and 13mm sockets, a 2.5mm Allen wrench, a 3/4 inch step drill bit, a tape measure, a pair of angle cutters, and a clip removal tool. All right, today we're going to be installing an intake on our F-150, but before we get started, we're going to send you to watch a quick video on how to remove your factory setup, and we'll see you when you get back.
All right, getting started here, guys. There's going to be a few different ways to take your stock intake apart. I'm going to start by removing the clamps here holding the factory intake in place using our 7mm socket we told you about earlier. Let's go. All right, so again, this clamp does feature a 7mm head, but if you don't have a 7mm laying around, obviously you can use a flat head as well. All right, so our third and final clamp is way down in there, kind of hard to see, but basically at this point, if you want to get a long extension with your 7mm or just a long flathead screwdriver and loosen up our final clamp. With those 3 clamps loosened up, now we can unplug our factory intake air temperature sensor here. We're going to leave the sensor in for now, but then once the intake is out, we're going to transfer that sensor over to our new Roush system. Now we're just going to go ahead and separate the factory air box from the bottom portion of the assembly. Simply remove these 2 clips. That will free the upper portion of the assembly so we can pull the intake out of the truck. With the majority of our factory intake out of the truck, now we're going to work on removing the snorkel and the lower portion of the airbox. Getting started, grab your panel removal tool, flathead screwdriver, whatever you have access to, and gently remove these 2 clips. Now we have our 13mm socket, and we're going to work on this bolt right here. We're going to grab our panel removal tool one more time here and separate this harness from the factory airbox. With everything disconnected, now we can lift up the bottom portion of our factory airbox and snorkel in one piece and remove it from the engine bay.
All right, welcome back. Now that we have our factory intake off, we're going to need to remove one of our 13mm mounting bolts for our radiator support that's right behind our headlight area. So we'll grab our 13mm socket on our impact and take that out because that's going to be where part of our new bracket mounts. So we'll get in there and get that out. All right, so that 13mm bolt again is right here. Get that out. We'll set that to the side for now. All right, so now we're going to have to assemble our pieces for our heat shield and mounting bracket for our intake itself. What we're going to do is start with our standoff stud. This is going to go into the factory grommet location for where our airbox was. We're going to mount that to this bottom hole right here. So we're going to get our standoff stud and our 10mm flange nut. We want this to come from the bottom. We'll get our nut in place. We'll grab our 10mm socket and we'll tighten this down. Next, we're going to install our various weather strip seal pieces. Now, these are indicated by the length of them on where they go on our heat shield. So if you want to grab yourself a tape measure, the first one we're going to find is our 18-inch piece. Find that now. We've got that. Bring this over. Now this 18-inch piece is going to go into the larger opening on our heat shield. Slot this in. And we're going to trim off a little bit of our excess, so we'll grab our angle cutters now. So we'll get our rough idea of where we need to trim. Now this channel does have a metal inner sleeve, so you will need a solid pair of cutters to get this cut. We have that trimmed down. We'll get that into place. Now for our smaller opening, we'll need our 15-inch section. It is a smaller weather strip, so it's very distinct. Again, we'll line up where we need to trim our excess and cut this down. Next up is going to be our 11.5-inch lower rear trim portion. That's going to go right here on this arc. Again, we'll see where we need to trim our excess and cut that down. Next is going to be our 7.5-inch front lower trim piece. Trim this down as well. And lastly, our large top piece. And we'll trim down the excess here as well. Now we can install our heat shield onto the vehicle. We're going to make sure that standoff stud and grommet go into our factory mounting location, and this front bracket lines up with that rad support bolt hole that we removed our 13mm bolt out from earlier. Get this into position. Press that down into place. All right, so now we're going to install our rear mounting bolt. So we've got our provided bolt and fender washer. We're going to line it up with this opening over here. You do want to be careful of your sensor wire over here. Get this through. Get that started. We'll grab our 10mm socket to tighten that down. We'll grab our 10mm socket on our ratchet and tighten this down. And we'll reinstall our 13mm rad support bolt. Get that in place. Tighten that back down with our 13mm socket. All right, so now we can install our couplers for our intake tubes. Now we've got a 3¼ to 3.5-inch coupler that's going to go on this upper hose here. So we've got our clamp for that. Just slide this right on. Make sure that's fully seated. And we'll grab our 8mm socket and snug this down. And you also want to put your 3.5-inch clamp on there just so we have it in place. You don't want to forget that and put your intake tube on. And you'll have to take it back off. And for the lower one, we got our 4-inch coupler as well. Same thing. Clamp on, get that in place. Now you want to have your clamps in a place where you can access them, so if you need to switch them around, you can. So now we've got this in place, we'll tighten this clamp down. Again, put our other clamp on just so it's in position. All right, so now we're ready to start installing our intake tube. However, one thing we need to do first is determine which side of our intake air temperature sensor is going to go. Now, ours comes from the back of the engine. There are provisions for whether yours comes from the back or the front, depending on the year model of your vehicle. So since ours is coming from the back, we're gonna locate our larger hole here. We need to drill out our 3/4 inch hole They leave these sealed in case you have the one or the other, and then you don't have a hole to plug up. So we've got our 3/4 inch set bit. We're just gonna drill in the center of this hole. Just like so. Now you're gonna have plastic bits all over you. You wanna take this over to an air hose or something and spray it out. You don't want any plastic bits in your intake. So we'll clean this up and then we'll come back and install our air temp sensor bracket. All right, so now we're gonna install our IAT bracket. Now, if you are doing this for the front tube, if your IAT sensor is at the other location, you will not need this bracket. You will need the provided grommet that comes with it, and you just stick that grommet in there. However, for ours, we're gonna need to put this bracket on, line it up with the bolt holes, and install our two provided 2.5mm Allen head screws. We'll get our first one started. Get this one in as well. All right, so now we can install our intake tube. Now we're gonna get our inlet sides into our heat shield first and then into our couplers. Kind of get this lined up. You wanna be careful. Don't wanna force anything. Now we'll tighten down the rest of our clamps. So we've got our 8mm socket, this top one first. Now we're gonna grab an extension on our ratchet with our 8mm socket and get this bottom clamp tightened down. All right, so next we're gonna need to install our vibration dampening mounting brackets between our heat shield and this bracket. Now sometimes this comes on the product already, as you can see here, sometimes it doesn't. If it is already on, that's okay. We'll just need to temporarily remove it. So we've got our 5mm Allen socket. We'll get these off. Now we're gonna install our vibration dampening mounts. So we'll thread these in. Now we're gonna bring back our bracket. What we're gonna do is line it up with these first. Then we'll install our provided flange nut. We'll do the same for this one. We'll tighten these down with our 10mm socket. Now we'll line our intake tube back up with our bracket. Reinstall the hardware. Get our 5mm Allen socket and tighten these back down. Now we'll get our filters on, so we'll grab our provided clamps just over our filters. Just set it into place. Do the same thing for our other filter. And we'll grab our 8mm socket and tighten these down. Lastly, we're gonna grab our intake air temp sensor out of our factory intake tube that simply twists out. So we wanna twist that counterclockwise and gently work that out. Sometimes it's stubborn. Just like so. Now we'll install it onto our new intake. Now we'll install our sensor onto our new IAT bracket. So the same thing, we're gonna give this a twist clockwise to lock it into place. We'll plug this in. We're good to go. Alrighty, that about wraps up our review and install of our Injen Power Flow cold air intake and black finish for your 15 to current 3.5 liter EcoBoost F-150. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.